PS Prasad and his team to the Public Accounts Committee. PS would ask that you inform of the PAC of the company and staff. But before I do so, I would like for us to observe the normal protocol once you are the minister or the previous minister of the agency, that you recuse yourself from the hearing. So I'll ask Member Patterson, who is prepared to do so.
Oh, yes. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was just about to do so. And good afternoon to all the staff of Public Infrastructure. Wish you a beautiful afternoon. We'll be back, but as custom dictates, I would recuse myself from the examination of this ministry. Thank you very much and good luck, PSC. And I invite Member Siraj to join me if he wishes.
All right, thank you very much, Member Patterson and Member Edgel. Members, we have 117 paragraphs, 54 from 2017 and 63 from 2018. So before I put the paragraph, I'll ask PS to introduce his team to the members of the PAC before we proceed.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair. My team comprises of Mr. Kanpat Sahai, my immediate right.
Could we get the members' portfolio as well?
Yes, so Mr. Kanpat Sahai, who's a Special Projects Officer. On my left, Mr. Ron Rahman, Chief Roads and Bridges Officer, Acting Head of WSG, Work Services Group. His immediate left is Ms. Bobby Kumari John, who is the Finance Controller of the Work Services Department. Starting from my left is Ms. Marceline Merchant, who is the Director, Transport and Harbors Department. Mr. Mitland Stewart, the Senior Engineer in the Senior Defense Department. Mr. Horace Williams, who is the head of the HECI. Mr. Jeffrey Walcott, who is the head of the Hinterland Roads Program. I have Ms. Messiah, who's the head of the HR department. Ms. Dion Amsterdam, who is the Senior Projects Officer and also head of the Aerodromes Program, Capital Program. Mr. Nigel Orskine, Senior Engineer for the Technical Services Division. Mr. Mark Green, who's also a Senior Engineer and Manager for international projects. Just behind me, I have Chief Accountant, Ms. Bourne. On her immediate right is Mr. Dwayne Rowland. He is the former head of Buildings Division and now Regional Engineer 10. And to his
Regional Engineer for where?
For Ministry of Public Works, our regional engineer for Region 10, responsible for Region 10.
What's his name?
Dwayne Rowland.
Okay.
And to his immediate right is Mr. Kester Hines, who's the head of our traffic safety and also our traffic program, both capital and current, and in infrastructure development project program.
Thank you, PS. I think this is your second appearance before the PS, right?
That's correct, Mr. Chairman.
I just want to remind you and your team of the Chapter 108 of the Legislative Bodies Evidence Act, which specifically indicates everyone every person examined under this act who willfully gives false evidence shall be guilty of perjury. This is in no way to impute anything, but we want to take this position to remind all accounting officers coming before the Public Accounts Committee to provide us with accurate and truthful information. If you're not in a position when the questions are posed by the honorable members, the opportunity will be provided for you to provide those information with some times provided by the committee. As you're aware, this is a normal procedure and we will proceed in that light. Members, I put paragraphs 362 to 380 for 2017 and 450 to 470 for 2018 for our consideration. The floor is open to all honorable members. Member Siraj, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This would be 362, 364, 2017, and 450, 452, and also 501, 2018. It's all related to contracted employees. And I noted that based on the response and the Auditor General observations, a high percentage of employees are contracted employees. Can the accounting officer give us an update on whether there have been any movement of the 229? I know 88 of these employees are considered to be above the age recommended to bring on to the fixed establishment. But of the remaining, what is the current situation?
Yes, you have the floor.
Through you, Chair. First of all, Mr. Siraj, to answer that question, the high number that you see as contracted employees is a large part representation of the work services group. So the consolidated number you see in the 6116 line is a reflection of both the Ministry of Public Works, or sorry, in this case, Ministry of Public Infrastructure proper, as well as the special unit, which is called the WSG.
Yeah, but I don't think that answers the question.
So now I think to the second part of your question has to do if the number of contracted or what the current state of our contracted employees are. So at the end of 2017, WSG had the bulk of that amount, which represents 132 contracted employees. And in 2018, end of 2018, that amount netting would have remained the same at 132, while you had a larger portion of persons moving to the permanent establishment.
What does WSG stands for again?
Work Services Group. It's a consolidation of all of the project implementation units that consists of highly skilled engineers and technical officers that are responsible for the execution of the Ministry of Public Infrastructure, in this case now Public Works projects across the country.
Okay. Member Siraj, you have the floor.
Mr. Chairman, yeah, for 365 in 2017 and in 502 for 2018, This is in 2017, I could understand there are a number of apartments that would have contributed to the amount outstanding. But in 2018, it is stated here that the general observed that one apartment owes a sum of $650,000. Can the PS inform PAC if the ministry has managed to recover this amount? Because I do consider this amount high for one single apartment.
Go ahead, PS.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sira. Through you, Chair. To answer that question, no, we are not able as yet to recover the sum stated. We have written to the former tenant of the apartment, and I think we've done actually 2 letters, one last year indicating the sum is outstanding, and the second this year in reminding that the sums are outstanding and to settle them as early as possible. However, the individual is not in the employ of the government, and as such, there is no immediate or direct mechanism to have deductions made.
Mr. Chairman, on the same paragraph, I think sooner rather than later, judgment call will have to be made whether you keep this on your books or whether you take steps, more aggressive steps to recover. And if those steps will cost you more, you might have to make a recommendation in moving forward to the AFS. More substantial matter, Mr. Chairman, if I can so go to paragraph 366 in 2017 and 372. I think in 2018, you also have a shortfalls of projects, capital projects, 454. Yeah. So there's been a significant amount in 2017, and also, although reduced in 2018, there's still a significant shortfall of capital expenditure. Is this issue related to the ministry's ability or inability to execute on these projects? Can you tell us some of the reasons why you've been unable to execute on these programs?
Thank you very much, Mr. Siraj. Through you, Chair. Let me deal with 2017 first. And the report would have indicated that there was a shortfall of about 5.6 billion, of which the largest proportion comes from the program 2, Public Works. As you may be aware, that the Public Works program, program 2, is the largest component since it includes the bulk of our funded projects. And to name a few, at that time, where we would have had shortfalls, specifically would have been under the Power Utility and Upgrade Program, the Sustainable Energy Program, the Electrification Program, and the Hinterland Electrification Program. So that's Program 1 with a 1.3 billion. And again, this had to do with lower than expected implementation due to either procurement related issues and or project management implementation issues. And I think the General's report would have briefly outlined some of those issues that would have caused a shortfall, in this case, not meeting its projected expenditure. On the program 2, which is the largest chunk, as I indicated earlier, represents the main, I should say, international or foreign funded projects. So these would have been a combination of either the highway improvement project, where one of the main elements, where they had a 2.2 billion shortfall, had to do with the pace of works that were delayed due to availability and removal of utilities. And as you're aware, these are not matters, issues that removing utilities is not a very simple matter to deal with. So as such, that would have caused a lot of delays in the project implementation on the highway improvement, which would have been the East Coast Road project, which is now completed. The second element of that, second project within the program 2 capital program would have been the road network and expansion. And this would have been around $760 million below projected expenditure. Again, mainly due to a delay in the award of the Sherry Street Mandela project. The other element had to do with city fences, which is about $551 million. And again, this would have been under the CDB city fence program. There are several lots, 6 lots to be exact. And at the time, which is in 2017, there were delays in the tendering award for lots 1 and 2. So as such, only mobilization was paid, and for lots 3 and 4 end up being awarded in 2018. Additionally, there are some other smaller projects, for example, the road improvement and rehab program, which is funded under the IDB. We had about $221 million on the expenditure, and these had to, while the project was being executed, the actual implementation / bringing to books, as we would like to say, happened in 2018. So that funds, the expenditure was not reflected in 2017. Under the miscellaneous program, the $113 million, which is a GOG, those really represent the rollovers for a lot of the miscellaneous roads. So hence that would not have been spent. Under the CDB, we would have added design and supervision contracts for the removal of utilities. Additionally, there's $81 million for the East Coast Demerara Road linkage. And again, this was due to some delays in the sourcing of the design consultant. Hence, those funds, that would have happened in the following year, 2018, and those funds would not have been reflected as expenditure through budget. That was budgeted. Again, we had 2 of our bigger projects that are now being taken forward, which is the Linda Mubura Hill Road project. That is to Kubakari. And at that time, again, this is about $50 million. And this was really for technical assistance. And while going out for technical assistance, there was some lack in the tendering process, in the tendering process that did not at the time provide or yield a suitable consultant. And for the waterfront development, specifically where there was some back and forth between the government and the UK CDB on a determination of those projects, which happened sometime in, I think, late 2018. So in 2017, that would have been a representation of the $4.2 billion on the foreign funded project. So that would have been a combination of foreign funded and part local. To deal with the matter on 2018, on the paragraph 454. So again, we would have had a shortfall of about 3.1 billion. And again, these are the 2 major projects or 2 major programs under which we had that shortfall. Again, not meeting our projected expenditure had to do with program public works and transport program. About 1.6 billion and 1.2 billion below projected expenditure. Again, these would have been outlined in the Auditor General's report with regards to the issues surrounding the Sustainable Energy Program, and some of the issues outlined reflected late implementation in the development and training and use of renewable resources, but more so specifically, this would have dealt with regards to the stakeholders not having consensus or could not agree on the communities that these projects were supposed to be implemented on. Originally, the solar micro and installation program for hinterland communities was originally agreeable at 10, and then at a revised stage, because of the not having consensus and agreement on with the stakeholders on the location, that ended up being completed in 2018, and then had to be designed that reduced from 10 to 9 communities. Additionally, you had survey activities tied to the Mokomoko Hydro project. While there was an award for that project, the contractor in this case was a foreign contractor who had provided a geotechnical survey. In doing that, there were several back and forth between the government and the contractor to begin works. Unfortunately, those work did not start, and the government was forced to retender that entire process. So that would have been some of the main explanation as to why the programs would have been behind schedule, sir.
Follow-up.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A number of issues are identified, Mr. Chairman, by the permanent secretary. Some relates to issues with procurement, the lack of capacity, now stakeholders not agreeing. In 2017, I don't know if you might have the information, but can we get an indication as to what would have been your actual staff in strength as compared to what it should be in 2017? Because clearly you're having some issues here that is related to execution. And I know that you might, when you start a project, especially doing roads and expansion of roads in existing areas where you have traffic, you have utilities and all of that, you will have difficulties. I appreciate that, but these are things that have been there. So all these things should have been taken into consideration. So if you have that information, so we could see basically if you were executing a program and you were on the staff, and what was your authorized strength and what was actually in place.
Yes.
Through you, Chair, I can provide that information at a later point. I don't have the exact number, but I can tell you offhand that indeed there were some issues with regard to capacity. When I say capacity, meaning the quantum of engineers, etc. And this was only rectified in sometime in 2019, whereby additional staff complement was approved for the work services group for creation and filling of new positions in 2019. So yes, Siraj, that is correct. We did have capacity issues in the context, and as a growing agency, we still do. And even more so now in the context that you're having to compete more with private sector, especially oil and gas, for skilled employees, especially engineers. So it is a continuous and a constant issue. Thankfully, we're getting some Guyana scholars who are allocated to the ministry for serving, and we're hoping to build and strengthen those their skill sets and capacity and capability as the agency basically is growing. And a reflection of that can be seen in this year's budget allocation. So I'm not sure if I fully answered your question, Mr. Siraj. But yes, we indeed had capacity issues in staffing.
So PS, the information to be provided, would a week suffice?
That's more than enough time. I was hoping probably by tomorrow I can give you that.
Okay. Member Siraj?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So PS, you would say that your staffing position has improved. I would want to assume has improved much, has improved from 2018, because these are huge amount of monies here that in 27, 5.6 billion, then under paragraph 375, another 4.2 billion. Some of this will roll over into 2018. So I'm only calling the 2017 numbers the shortfall, because obviously there are a lot of funds available here to execute on these programs. And even the routine programs, the ministry seem to be experiencing shortfall. And if I can direct you, Mr. Chairman, to paragraph 373 and 374, this has nothing to do with roads and challenges faced with relocating utilities and all of that. This is, routine, I would say, routine maintenance and construction of new facilities in government buildings. So PS, it roll over to 2018 in paragraph 456. But I note now that this project would have been completed since then. But it definitely shows that pointing to a capacity issue to execute. And we'll be happy to note that the ministry is taking steps to address this issue of full complement of staff close to your authorized strength itself, because I'm also aware that you have huge budgetary allocations going into 2022. So, Mr. Chairman, on those particular issues that it relates to shortfalls, I don't have any further question for the permanent secretary on those matters, since I said he summarized it to be issues that has to do with procurement, the lack of capacity to execute, awarding of contracts, and I think for the hinterland programs, it would have been the stakeholders' consensus on where to do these things. So I will give it.
Given that, honorable member, I will put paragraph 362 to 380 for 2017 and 470 to 491 for our consideration. Yes, for my edification, how many scholars the ministry has gotten to help serve in the shortfall that you would have experienced to date? Is it sufficient enough to carry the workload of this ministry, given the large sums that the ministry has been allocated?
Thank you, Chair, for that question. The simple answer is not enough. I can give you some numbers as of last year. I think we only benefited from about 3 or 4 engineers that came out from university through the, and this year we will have about 6. Yeah, 6 to date.
That's civil engineers?
Those are
civil engineers?
That's correct. Well, the bulk are civil engineers. And even though as they come out, many of them don't have the level of experience. So you have to then pair them up with somebody a bit more senior and who has more practical, so you can have that knowledge transfer at a faster pace.
Is it fair to conclude that most of those same people, these new recruits, should be leaning on the ministry experiencing an exodus to the other competing foreign interests?
The question to that is yes, we are. It's a competition up to today, actually until today, last week. we got a resignation from an engineer, and I've been told he's a very good employee, well suited for his work, etc. And I'm trying to find out what is the issue in terms of my exit interview. And sense is basically I had a better package in the private sector. And there's no way we can compete with that in our current, especially when if they're under the ministry's permanent scale, or even if they're contractual, there's still a bandwidth that you have to work within. So the competition, we're now having to compete more, even not even engineers, procurement individuals and stuff like that, where the government would have invested over time with the intent of building that capacity and having some level of succession planning. But that's just the harsh reality we are faced with.
This is a very dim reality, man. So, but as PS, I mean, having foreseen this reality that exists, one would want to believe a proposal to government, because I believe there was a red line in certain contracts that were offered to specialized engineers at the ministry. Probably that very position should be relooked at and offer our Guyanese skilled men and women a better package, because we can lose them.
I agree with you, Mr. Chair. What I can say is that the Minister of Finance had mentioned, I think he did mention it in his budget presentation, that there is a review process ongoing with the aim of rationalizing and not only rationalizing, but allowing for a uniformity in payment or salary packages for skilled or highly skilled personnel across the whole of government. So it is with that aim we are awaiting to see what the final product will be before we take a package to cabinet, etc. So to say we don't want to jump the gun on that, but your point is duly noted and it is taken.
I don't think you should jump the gun. I think you should shoot it, because the longer we wait, we will definitely lose out. And the ministry has been gifted a very large chunk of budgetary allocation. And if they don't have capacity to spend it, then it's to the detriment of not only the ministry, but the country as a whole. Member Siraj, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First, let me express also concerns similar to yours. I endorse the general line that you're taking, and that concern is shared, especially in light, as you noted, the huge chunk of budget for this particular ministry. Mr. Chairman, if I can go to 390 and 399, this is 2017, and 2018, 473 and 494. I know there generally has been a reduction in the shortfall, but in 2017, under these paragraphs here, you had a shortfall of $123 million as it relates to 3 IDD loans, 1 India loan and 1 loan from China. So that's $123 million. But if you come across to 2018, there's a shortfall of $1.281 billion, and in respect of 3 IDD loans and 1 Indian loan. So this is a huge increase. So my question is, you've had new agreements and new loans from the IDB, or is it the same 3 and 1 from India that roll over to 2018, and the amount shown has to do with what was budgeted to be spent in the year before and what was budgeted for 2018? Because I'm not grasping how is it that it moved from 123 million to almost 1.2 to 1.3 billion dollars in 2018.
1.281 billion.
So the particular item you're referring to in 2017, I think the one that has made the huge jump would have been the ferry vessel So in 2017, $85 million would have been budgeted for a ferry vessel, which is from the line of credit by the government of India. There were delays in finalizing the tender document, including the design, and that would have caused that amount of 85 million not being spent. However, in 2018, as you may be aware, that for the ferry vessel, this project would have had to be 1.3 was allotted in a voted provision, which was to procure a ocean-going passenger vessel. The amount would have been unspent due to the fact that some of the issues we had were the no objection, and that mainly because the Indian Exim Bank did not provide the no objection for the award to the contract that the original bidder was recommended. So the head of it, in this case, the agency, we had delays experienced during the tender process, including requests for explanation by the unsuccessful bidder, as well as clarification from the Exim Bank with regard. So this was a issue whereby we had a bid protest, and the mechanism for resolution would have kicked in, and that created some protracted timeline. So the 1.3 billion that was allotted was not spent because no contract was able to be entered into at the time.
Member Siraj, you have a follow-up?
No, Mr. Chairman, not on this particular matter.
Yes, it is concerning with regards to the challenges at the ministry, but I wanted to ask, have you or any member of your staff discovered when the ministry puts out these contracts, some of the staff who would have left you are being featured on the private contractors? Because some of the contract have to have engineers. Are you recognizing some of your previous staff on those?
We do from time to time, and it's no secret. Quite a few persons prior to me being at the ministry. My head of WSG can relate to many of the persons who are former employees, are either in private practice or working for other companies.
Okay.
But I'm happy to give an update on the ferry in light of
proceed.
Many of the challenges that you would have seen in 2017 and 2018, that the ferry is way above its delivery timeline, and we're expecting to have delivery sometime this year.
Excellent. This floor is still open, honorable members.
Chairman, can I go to 400 or 27?
Yes, so what I will do, I will put 400 to 416 for 2017 and 491 to 512 for 2018 for our consideration. Proceed, honorable members.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. 400, 2017, statutory bodies. See huge amount of votes. It's 503, 505. 2018. And the amount of $0.8 billion. But there appears, sorry, Mr. Chairman, so. Right. 400 for 2017, and it's 503 and 505 for 2018. $2.8 billion for statutory agencies, but the ministry seems to be encountering some difficulties in getting these statutory bodies to submit a financial statement. Can the accounting officer give us an indication of what is his current situation?
And in answering that, if I can add to Mr. Siraj's question, could we have a number of these statutory bodies and more so the names of the 8 who did not submit their financial audits?
Thank you, Mr. Siraj. Through you, Mr. Chair. Let me just indicate one caveat to that before I go into the details, in that several of these entities are no longer under the reporting ambit of the ministry, and as such, they now fall as a subvention agencies under the Office of the Prime Minister. So I will just indicate which are those entities, and then I will go into details on updating the ones that are currently under the Ministry of Public Works, where they stand. So, for example, the Guyana Energy Agency, the Hinterland Electrification Company Incorporated, the Latem Power Company are no longer under the Ministry of Public Works and that remit.
Is LEI under your remit, or is that now a reflection under the Prime Minister's?
That's correct, sir. They're under the Office of the Prime Minister.
LEI is as well?
Yes. So,
Mr. Chairman, LEI is Linden.
Yes.
Yeah.
You call that? Yeah, call that one.
Yeah.
When you were naming them?
well,
Oh, you did?
no, I didn't.
Okay.
The one I called is Latem Power Company, sir.
Yes.
So let me give you an update, sir, on the financial statements for several. The first has to do with the Damar Harbor Bridge Corporation. Financial statements have been ended. Financial statements.
Yeah, sorry, not to interrupt you, but only the power companies has gone now under the remit of the Prime Minister's office.
That is correct, sir.
Noted.
Well, and the energy agency, GEA.
Yeah, EPA.
So
Clarification, Mr. Chairman, if I'm just before you go on, please.
sure, sir.
So I know you call GE and the Hinterland program and let them. So our chairman was asking about Linden. So Linden is under Prime Minister's office also.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
And GEA.
And GEA. To continue, sir, through you, Mr. Chair, in the last reported issue audit for Damar Harbor Bridge is that they would have submitted financial statements for 2017, 2015, for the years 2015 to 2017 were laid in the National Assembly on December the 13th, 2021. For the year 2018, the financial year 2018, the auditors, PKF Barcelos Narayan and Company, have completed the audit for the year 2018 and are in the process of submitting their working paper to the Auditor General for review and approval. For the fiscal year 2019, the auditors listed above are in the process of obtaining approval from the Auditor General to commence verification of the financial statements. And this is expected to be completed within three weeks after receiving approval. For the financial year 2020, the auditors again listed above are in the process of obtaining approval from the Auditor General to commence verification of the financial statements. And these works are estimated to be completed within 4 to 4.5 weeks from the issuance of receiving approval.
Before we proceed, can the audit office give us an update on those audits?
Mr. Chair,
as PS mentioned, for 2018, let me start at 2018. I'm advised here that the field work has been completed and the file is being reviewed. And for the years 2019 to 2021, the audit plans are currently being reviewed.
So you have those audits in your possession?
No, the plans are being reviewed now for those audits, 2019 to 2021.
But these audits were given out from the audit office to these contracted to these private audit firms.
Yes, it was been a contracted.
What was the deadline given for them to complete the audits?
Mr. Chair, at present, I can't give you that information. The AG is not here.
Proceed, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. For the Cherry-Jagan International Airport Corporation, audited financial statements ending 2018 and 2019 were laid in the National Assembly on February 22nd, 2021. And audited financial statements for the year ending 2020 were approved by Cabinet on the 27th of January 2022. And the usual 100 copies of the financial statements were received by the ministry and were forwarded to the clerk of the National Assembly on February the 11th for him to arrange laying in the National Assembly. And this would have been the last audited statement as of 2019 for the Cherry-Jagan International Airport. For Civil Aviation Authority, the last audited report laid in the National Assembly would have been 2018, and that would have covered the period 2017 and 2018, which was laid in December 2021. For the financial statements for 2019, the audit statement has been completed by TSD Lal and Company and submitted to the audit office for review and approval. Again, on receipt of that approval of the audited financial statements, Cabinet no objections will be sought and have the same laid in the National Assembly. For the year 2020, fiscal year 2020, the financial statements for the year were drafted by April 30th, 2021. Since 2002, however, the Auditor General had constantly issued a disclaimer or qualified opinion. And basically, the summary basis for this opinion, as you will observe, relate to the inability of the auditors to satisfactorily audit fixed assets and receivables. So the delay in submitting the 2020 financials for audit is a result of the efforts to improve the reliability of the statements submitted by effecting improvements in the area mentioned, which is their fixed asset register, and having that updated and submitted as early as possible. The expected date of submission to the Ministry of Public Works is expected on June 2022. Those are the timeline given to us by Civil Aviation Authority. With regards to Transport and Harbors Department, their last audited financial statements were in 2009. Since that would have covered the period 2008 and 2009, and they would have been laid in the National Assembly in December 13, 2021. For the years 2010, the financial statements for year 20 were approved by Cabinet on September 2021 and laid in the National Assembly. Transport and Harbors has been requested to submit the 100 copies, and the department indicated that this will be done by the 1st of March 2022. For the year 2011, queries and statements of financial positions were submitted. Answers to the queries were raised during the course of the audit and is being completed and reviewed for submission to TSD Lab. This is expected to be submitted by the 3rd of March 2022. Now, additional works for the years 2012 are yet to be done before the completion of the process. And as such, financial statements for the year 2013 to 19 were submitted to the audit office. Were submitted to the Office of the Auditor General for on or before March 2022. Sometime in March, I think around the 12th or so, that should be completed. For Marad.
So hold on. It is the agency themselves who's conducting these audits?
No, sir. These audits are being conducted through a form contracted
by the audit office.
By the audit office.
So can the audit office give us an update? I mean, this is several years ago. We're in 2022, and we're still talking about audits of 2010 and 2011 and 2012. Haven't these forms been contracted to provide these services and paid? How is it that up to now we have not gotten these audits finalized?
Mr. Chair, if I can have maybe Ms. Badley give us some assistance. She's on virtual.
Ms. Badley? Listen, we can't wait for Ms.
And we have Ms. Singh. Ms. Singh, can you give us an update, please?
Ms. Singh?
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm sorry, I didn't get to hear the name of the entities we were referring to.
We wanna respond from the audit office with respect to all of the agencies who have a backlog of audits to be submitted. We wanted to know why is it that they have not completed these audits, even though they were issued these audit contracts years ago. And we're in 2022 and we're still awaiting these audit reports from these different agencies that were contracted to private auditors since 2010, 2011, 2012, and it has not yet been completed. So we would like to know from the audit office, what is the status of those audits? Okay. And have those private audit firms, or they paid in full for the audits that they were to conduct since then?
Mr. Chairman, the audits that were contracted to these chartered accountants, the progress of it depends on the submission of records from the entities or the agencies during the course of the audit. If that moves smoothly and that comes continuously, then the audit is able to be finalized quickly. If not, we still have to await the submission of those records. In terms of payment to the chartered accountants, that is done in accordance with the contract that we have with them, and they are not paid until work is actually done. So there are progress payments along the way. So when there is 50% of the audit done, they probably would get about 50% of the payment. A part of the payment is held back until the audit opinion is actually issued, finalized and issued, then they are paid in full. So there's no person or no contracted auditor that would be paid for audits that are not completed.
So it is the lapse of the respective agencies in providing the most needed information for the audits to be conducted.
Correct, the onus is on the agency.
So PS, how are we addressing this? Or what steps has been put in place to correct this? I mean, 10 years ago and 12 years ago is a very long time.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. What I can say we have put in place is a more robust boards where especially skilled directors who sit on the boards are able to advise and aid in the faster generation of these financial statements and to guide the entities. It's no the entity in question with regards to a lot of these years of backlogs lack the type of technical skill set, or should I say, technical personnel in preparation or in preparing financial statements and proper record keeping, etc. To correct that, the new boards that are installed have the requisite, I should say, technical personnel on those boards. And their main mandate, one of their main mandates indeed, and that's why you see so much is trying to get done in such a short time, is to get these accounts up to date and to aid the agency in completing their audits. That's just a reality of situation. This is the time, and we've, as you can see, every single year, even when they're consolidated, we're trying to get done in a faster manner, even by consolidating several years. Like I said, the response by the audit officer is indeed correct, whereby if you don't have adequate records, etc., well, then that will hinder the pace at which the preparation of those documents and hinder the process and timeline. So what we have been able to do, and is exactly what is being executed right now, is a very strong, the boards are placed now with very strong accounting and finance directors that can lead and also guide the process, including technically advising what needs to get done and correct if deficiencies existed in record keeping, and also preparation of those statements. So that is what I can indicate to you at this point in time, sir. That's a corrective measure.
Okay, Member Siraj.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Follow up on the same paragraph. Mr. Chairman, I know for TNHD 2011, you have audit queries and so on, but and I know the ministry and the accounting office and auditors are probably moving ahead with the other years in terms of doing the preparatory work. But if you have queries in 2011, I suspect you have a big case here of documents missing, can't find things and all of that. And an audit is that you have an end of year and you have an opening year. So if you don't close one year, it will be difficult to open the other one. And if in 2022, we're still not getting 2011 up to date, and the AG office is saying that the auditors are stymied by a lack of documents and all of that, whilst you have made some progress, I don't know what's the prognosis for TNHD really coming on stream. This is going to be extremely difficult work to try to reconcile, and every year we were going toward a year late. And if we couldn't find the documents 3 years ago, I don't know how you're going to find them now. And so I don't know what the accounting officer can advise us is the way forward. What's the ministry thinking along with the Office of the Auditor General in moving forward with at least this agency that is way back? I think you were going on to say something about MARAD. I hope the situation there is better than TNHD.
Thank you, Mr. Siraj. Through you, Chair. Just to respond that the 2011 financial statement have been completed and is submitted to the audit office. The 2012 works are yet to be done before the completion of the process. In the meantime, for the statements 2013 to 19, the financial statements for 2013 to 2019 were submitted to the audit office. So I think the next step really is for the audit office to then either hire outsource that particular set of work so the process can begin, and that will entail development of the audit plan, etc. So there's some other actions to be taken more so by the audit office. So what I can say is the main thing is that the financial statements were prepared and submitted to the audit office. So it's now for the audit, is now open for auditing by the audit office. So that process will begin. It will depend on whoever the audit office will be assigning as the auditor. And that will cover the years 2013 to 2019. With regards to the other area, Marad. So Marad's last report laid in the last audited statement laid was in 2005. The 2007 and 2006 and 2007, the financial statements were prepared and submitted to the audit office. The audit is complete. The response submitted to audit office, and audit office is now to finalize and issue their audit opinion for 2006 and 2007. 2008 and 2009, the financial statements are prepared and submitted to the audit office. The audit is complete and the management letter is to be issued by the audit office. With regards to 2010 to 2015, the financial statements were prepared, are prepared and submitted to the audit office. The audit office has now appointed an external audit firm, which is Ramdayal and Company, to conduct the audit. And Ramdayal and Company is now awaiting the finalization of the 2006 to 2009 audit before they can commence their 2010 audit. We expect that this audit will commence in the second quarter of 2022, all else being equal, and we have that final report and sign off from the audit office. 2019 to 2020, 2016 to 2018, the financial statements were prepared and submitted to the audit office. Again, awaiting audit response from the audit office on identification of the auditors. And 2019 to 2020, preparation of the financial statement is in progress and is expected to be completed by the second quarter in 2022. The financial statement is anticipated to be submitted to the audit office by the third quarter of 2022. With that being said, that covers the respective agencies under the purview of the Ministry of Public Works. So, Mr. Chair, while there are some entities that have made tremendous progress in submitting their financial statements, and even some that are up to date, specifically Guyana International Airport, others have been making strides in terms of catching up and being able to provide their up-to-date state. And this is something that the ministry and myself is very firm on, to be able to, as you can see, all the years are in process. We now have to work a bit more collaboratively with the audit office to ensure that the process is a bit more speedy in terms of identification and getting the necessary elements of the audit process completed in a fast manner.
Is it safe to conclude that most of the submission of the records basically is a reflection from 2016, the process, where it see great improvement in gathering all of the information for the audit office to conduct their affairs?
Well, sorry. The simple fact that you're able to generate a financial statement, it means that you would have had some level of record keeping in
More
place.
improved.
More and again, as time goes by, it will improve. Once systems are strengthened, public financial management is not a overnight type of process that would build. It takes time to build and get embedded to improve public efficiency and finances.
We're happy about the progress. Members, any additional questions for this agency?
Can we go on beyond 400?
Yes, all the paragraphs are before us.
Thank you. 402, 405 payment vouchers, it's reflected 496 and 500 in 2018. Is there any update on this matter of payment vouchers of 109.119 million? were not produced for the audit office to look at. Payment vouchers. In 2018, it would be under paragraphs 496 and 500. Has there been any improvement on this matter?
Mr. Chair, through you, 496 that you're referring to would have been the special audit that was conducted by the audit office with regards to the Dormer Park project. Sir, I am, from our last discussion that response given from last year to now, we're still unable to find any documentation or any new documentation with regards to this project. All of the necessary documentation that were in the ambit of the ministry would have been handed over to the audit office to facilitate their investigation, sir.
So the ministry doesn't have copies of those?
No, I don't think, I think the entire, from my, I'm advised that the entire set of original vouchers were handed over to the audit office and are still